I'll call the North Smithfield School Committee meeting of March 15, 2022 to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chair Lombardi.
Present.
Mrs. Mayo. Here. Mrs. Bodden. Here. Mr. Connell.
Mr. Connell called me and said that he might be a few minutes late. He's still at work.
Mr. Jones. Here.
We have a quorum. Moving on to Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So before we get to public comment or community comment, unless there's an objection, I'd like to move the presentation of the vision of a graduate, NEASC requirement by Kim Rawson, Karen Bodden, and Lindsay Aromin. So if you want to come up.
Good to go.
I'm getting you there. It doesn't want to go away. Okay. Go.
Good evening. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to share with you some of the hard and wonderful work that's been taking place in our district over the last 3 years. So this is really just an introduction to a part of our journey in the process of creating and implementing the vision of the graduate. And it made me reflect on the fact that our mission as a school district overall is to prepare each student to be a successful and responsible member of society. And the vision of the graduate is really one way that we can help ensure that we are graduating students who are prepared for future success. I'm Kim Rawson. I graduated from North Smithfield High School in 1999, and I am also a teacher for 19 years at the high school, and I have 2 daughters who attend the school system.
Hello, thank you for having us. I'm Karen Bodden. I am an English teacher at the high school. I've been in this district for 10 years, and I'm also the English department head.
Good evening, I'm Lindsay Aromin. I'm an English teacher at the high school for the past 15 years and also the senior project coordinator. Thank you for having us.
Hello, I'm Emily Hazelton. I am a senior at the high school and also pursuing a degree in business.
Hi, my name is Ray Marcella, and I'm a senior at North Smithfield High School pursuing engineering at the University of Rhode Island.
Oops, did I go to, oops, look at that. How do I go back, mister?
Back arrow, you got it.
No. We go to the agenda.
There you go.
One more.
One more.
Perfect. Thank
It's
you.
all yours. Go.
So tonight, what we're going to do is first introduce you to this component, the vision of the graduate. It is a new component to the NEASC process, so we did not have to create a vision 10 years ago when we went through the accreditation process. Then we're going to highlight our story as a district and what we've done to create this vision. And then we're very excited to have 2 student representatives who are going to share with you their input, and we're hopefully looking forward to a future where we incorporate a lot more student voice. And then it's the introduction of the final draft of the vision of the graduate. And we'll end by just sharing with you some of our plans to make sure that this vision is more than just a document and comes to life within the classroom.
So we are currently gearing up for our NEASC accreditation. And one of the requirements of the NEASC accreditation is that we have a vision of the North Smithfield graduate. So the vision of the graduate emphasizes a holistic view of expectations for students, including the transferable skills, content, understandings, and disposition that students should have by the time they graduate. We did not begin this work totally from scratch. We had some core documents, including our core values, our beliefs about learning, and our student learning expectations. These are documents that are already embedded into the high school, and we base a lot of our curriculum development around them, what happens in the classroom, and what we expect from our students in terms of their behavior and contributions to our school. But the vision of the graduate differs from these documents in that NEASC is really looking for us to be able to show what our graduate looks like as they exit the doors of North Smithfield High School and enter into the world.
So it was really important to us that our vision was inclusive of the entire district, including our educators at NSPS, at North Smithfield Middle School and the high school. Also, we wanted to make sure that our students were included in the process, and we also got parents involved by setting up some stations at the open houses. When we ran all these professional workshops, this is pre-COVID, we asked 3 big questions of all of our stakeholders in the community. The first was, what are the most important cognitive capacities that should underpin your students' learning across their classes and through their school experience? Which personal competencies are valued most at home and at school? And which interpersonal competencies are the most essential for collaboration and community in your school spaces? So we got a lot of great information in the 2019-2020 school year. So like I said, we went to the elementary school, middle school, and high school. We collected things from parents, and we got a ton of great information about what people thought that their kids were getting in school, what their wishes were for what their students would be able to do by the time they graduated. And it was just a really nice process where I think everyone really felt like their voices mattered, because they do. We definitely didn't want to create something in a vacuum. We wanted to make sure that all of our stakeholders were invested in this process.
Karen and Kim had begun this work, and then this year they roped me in. So little did I know what I was getting into, but you know how that goes. So at the start of this school year, we picked up with the work, and in partnership with New England Base Camp, we worked with Julie Maruska, who actually took all of the words that had been generated from those 3 questions, and she did an inventory. So you can see a screenshot here of how she did this. So this was really, really helpful for us to know what some of the most important words were. We also were able to cross-reference words that were recurring, that came up in our values already, in our core values and our beliefs about learning and our learner expectations, along with some new words and phrases that came up that were deemed really important. Thank you. So based on this inventory of words, around late September, Kim, Karen, and I set about to actually draft the vision of the graduate. This was quite a process. We spent a good deal of time on this. And what we did, you can see through the screenshot there, we started off just by determining what the elements of the vision of the graduate would be. So you can see there, one of them ended up being a responsible citizen. And then we basically categorized the words that fit under that particular topic, and we color coded so we could see what was a core value, what was a learner expectation. What's highlighted in green there was deemed something that was high in the word count. So we were really able to make sure that we were incorporating all of this work that had been done pre-COVID.
So that led to the creation of the first draft. It'll go through a number of drafts, which we'll speak to you about this evening. But once we crafted really the first draft of the vision of the graduate, we presented it to the high school educators on the first PD day in September. And we spent the morning really giving people time, first of all, to read the whole vision of the graduate to get that holistic perspective. And then we broke up into groups where teachers from different grade levels, different backgrounds, different content areas went through and just really focused in on one of the components of the vision of the graduate and gave feedback as to what they thought were the strengths of that component, what they felt maybe could use some work, and any other additional suggestions. And then as a faculty, we presented out. And I know that we found that those types of PD days just really beneficial and really inspiring as educators, because the whole time the focus is on the student and what it is that we can do as educators to support their success in the future. And so it was wonderful conversations. We took that information, revised the first draft, so now we're on our second draft. We sent that draft out to middle and elementary schools with a feedback survey and received their feedback, used that feedback to revise it again. So now we're on our third group. And so it's been a work in process, and it's something that I think we're very proud of. And we were excited to see that the feedback we got when we sent out the draft to both the middle and elementary schools was that they felt that pride as well. And that they felt that what was created was a comprehensive vision for the future and something that was clear and detailed and really highlighted what it is we all across the board want for our children in the future. And then we decided to, and then we brought in really, I would say, the most important part, the student voice, because this is going to impact them. And so I'm going to turn it over to our students to explain that process.
So in November is when the student committee was created, and below are a list of students that were chosen or asked to participate in this, ranging from all different grade levels and all different ability levels. And these were all based off of teacher nominations. And personally, I can't speak for everyone, but I felt very proud and very honored to be asked to participate in something like this. And I feel like I have a really big voice, and that is really important.
Following up with what Emily said, I felt honored to be a part of this group that came together to create the ideal vision of the graduate. As a senior, this was my opportunity to have a lasting impact on the district that I've been a part of since kindergarten.
Thank you. Thank you. So this was our pictures from our first meeting in early November after our committee was established. And I just remember the first activity we kind of did after socializing and getting to know one another was answering the big three questions. We were divided up into different groups and were handed out big sheets of paper, and we all kind of just scribbled on them different ideas and different opinions about these questions. And at the end, we kind of all got together and discussed our thoughts and opinions, us as well as our teachers here. And I think it was a wonderful conversation. We didn't even truly get to finish the first step just because we were talking about things like homework and GPAs and student voice and student choice and advocacy. But it was really wonderful to work with and meet new people in this. And yeah, I'll turn it over to Ray.
Oh, my apologies. It's back to second. No, other way.
You know
The
what?
other way.
You take over.
Okay,
I am
yes.
just getting in your way right now.
Wonderful. All right. So after the first meeting concluded, we were called back together as student committee about a month later. During this meeting, we examined the draft that had been created by the teachers. And in small groups, the students looked over the draft that had been constructed and pointed out parts that they agreed with, highlighted in green, as well as parts that they felt that didn't fit the vision just right, and we highlighted them in red. We then came together to discuss our revisions with the other groups as well as the teachers to create a final draft.
There we are. So by December, we had our final approved vision of the graduate. And that actually, I think we're on draft 5, if I am correct, by this point in time. But the student committee was really important. And I just wanted to give you an example of some of the important feedback we got from them. So under our innovative thinker, we had originally written that we wanted our graduates to be risk takers. And the students did not like that language and immediately kind of flagged it. They said that it had a negative connotation and it didn't sit right with them. And so we ended up having this really wonderful conversation about, well, what words do you think? And they ended up contributing that we, instead of wanting risk takers, we want courageous individuals who are not afraid to take action. And that was just one of the contributions we got from the student committee that was really, really important. So once we had the finalized draft, I should say, we sent it out to the district overall for approval, and we were very excited. We didn't expect to get 100% approval, but we were really excited that we did. We had 90 educators complete the survey, which is over 60% of our faculty.
So by February of 2022, we were ready to share publicly. So Kim, Lindsay, and I spent weeks trying to take this written vision and turn it into a visual. And finally, when we didn't have anything that looked very nice, I said, you know, I have a student, Cara Pesia. She's in my advanced creative feature writing, publication, and design class. She's amazing. I showed her our stuff. Within 2 hours, she had created a gorgeous visual, and we felt a little bad about the weeks we had spent, but Cara crushed it. So this is what Cara designed. And I'm going to have Ray and Emily talk us through it.
So our first characteristic or core characteristic of a graduate is an innovative thinker. And what I have here is a North Smithfield graduate is an innovative thinker. They are curious and actively seek out solutions to problems they identify. They're courageous and not afraid to try something new and embrace opportunities to learn from mistakes. Throughout the process of problem solving, they are patient and flexible when confronted with obstacles. They are resourceful, creative, and adaptive, and seize opportunities for growth and progress. They have grit and persevere to achieve desired outcomes as well.
Our second trait of a graduate is a lifelong learner. A North Smithfield graduate is a lifelong learner. As self-directed individuals, they are inquisitive, identify interests, and pursue their passions to inform career and life decisions. As critical thinkers, they experiment with different methods to create new understandings and see failure as an opportunity for growth. They know how to find and utilize reliable and valid sources of information to inform opinions. They never stop seeking out the endless paths that lead to success.
Next, we have effective communicator and collaborator. A North Smithfield graduate is an effective communicator and collaborator. They advocate for themselves and others and are able to give and receive feedback to make positive changes. They utilize writing, speech, technology, and other social media platforms effectively and appropriately to convey their message. They possess an awareness of the lasting impact of language. When collaborating with others, they are patient, open-minded, and active listeners who are able to participate in respectful discourse.
Next, we have responsible citizen. A North Smithfield graduate is a responsible citizen. They care about their local, state, and national communities, as well as illustrate global awareness. They are respectful in their interactions with all people, regardless of differences and abilities. They value inclusivity and act with integrity in their interactions with others.
And lastly, we have a healthy individual. A North Smithfield High School graduate is a healthy individual. They respect their mind and body and possess the ability to both recognize unhealthy patterns and utilize appropriate coping mechanisms. They implement time management skills to maintain a balanced life and utilize social emotional awareness to self-monitor and make sound decisions. They are independent, demonstrate maturity, and have a strong sense of self. They participate in healthy relationships with others by setting appropriate boundaries. Reflective of their individual choices, they understand that their hard work and actions lead to success. Thank you.
So now we come to our next steps for spreading the vision. We would like to create a video, and I'm very proud to report that we have a new broadcast studio at the high school. And I'd like to publicly thank our maintenance department, who's worked very hard, our IT department, Mr. McGee himself, who has gotten into the weeds with this, our wood shop, our career and tech teachers for the use of their printers, Mr. St. Jean and Mrs. Arnold for their unwavering support, And we're going to use the studio on one of its maiden voyages to create the video. Emily and Ray will both be part of that, as will Cara Pesia and Abby Savigny, another senior who is not here with us, who helped secure the funding for the furniture that was donated graciously by Cardi's Furniture. She said we should treat them, and she was right. We're also going to create a social media campaign to spread awareness of the new vision. We'll be using the student committee in addition to my class because they're learning about design and publication. And we're going to be sharing the video and the social media is going to be the platform that we use to share this with our entire student body, K through 12. And we also want to print out really nice signage for the elementary, middle, and high school so that this really is a K through 12 initiative. We get there by what happens starting in kindergarten.
And then finally, the next step for us as a school district is really to now take this vision and bring it to life within the classroom. And so that means that we need to identify how we are going to assess students' achievement of these characteristics, of these habits of mind and the skills that are connected with the vision of the graduate, as well as a feedback process so we can let families and students know how they're doing at reaching the vision. We also want to make sure, as Karen referenced, that this is something that will be integrated K through 12, because what you learn in kindergarten, right? Everything I need to know, I learned in kindergarten, and it goes on from there. And so we'll be working closely with both the elementary and middle school to make sure that these core components are integrated into the classroom. So we're really excited about the prospects for the future and making sure that we can help all of our students achieve this vision of the graduate will ultimately give them the opportunities to do whatever they want to do. So thank you so much for your time.
It was a pleasure to present to you this evening, and we thank you for putting us on the agenda, and we appreciate your support.
I'd like to just echo my colleagues. Thank you for giving us this platform and for your support.
Let me zoom in for one of the students. Oh, come on. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. All right. Now the students can thank everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that we actually have to thank you because that was absolutely fantastic. And you should be very proud of yourselves because you've done a wonderful job. Congratulations and thank you.
I agree completely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I just want to echo, my daughter is 4, so we're getting ready to start thinking about kindergarten. So this whole presentation, I'm sitting here with a big smile on my face, like this is really cool to see. So well done, really, really well done, well thought out, very impressed. So good job.
All right, moving on. I just want to make one announcement. So just for everyone, there is a school committee meeting that's going on right now, and there's also after this meeting a joint meeting with the town council, just to be clear on that. Anybody have any questions? If anybody wants to make a public comment or a community comment, I believe there's signups over there. Anyone signed up? Does anyone want to speak on Zoom?
If on Zoom, if you want to raise your hand, or if I see your video, you can physically raise your hand. I don't see anyone yet, but I'll keep looking.
Well, Superintendent, so,
I don't see anybody on Zoom with a hand raised.
okay, so anyone who's on Zoom who wants to speak then, does anyone else who's not on the sign up sheet want to speak? Okay, we'll start with Ethan Dano.
Hello, I'm Ethan Dano. I'm currently a senior at North Smithfield High School. I just wanted to come speak to you all tonight because I was incredibly concerned by something that I saw at the last school committee meeting, which is this push by a number of parents in the district to remove books from our school libraries. And as a student, I think that this is incredibly harmful, and I wanted to speak to you a little bit on why. So first and foremost, by removing books solely because you disagree with the content expressed within, you are infringing upon the rights of your students. The Supreme Court Justice Robert Jackson once wrote that if there is any fixed star in our constitutional constellation, it is that no official high or petty can prescribe what shall be orthodox in matters of opinion. While it is the school committee's duty to ensure that books are placed in the proper library, almost all of the books brought up by parents at the last meeting can be exclusively found in the high school library. As a high school student myself, I would argue that high school students are mature enough to consider their own religious and moral beliefs and come to their own conclusions about the so-called deviant sexuality that is present in some of the books that were mentioned in the last school committee meeting. Students do not simply shed their constitutional rights at the schoolhouse gate. And as a plurality of the Supreme Court found in Board of Education versus PICO, the special characteristics of the school library make that environment especially appropriate for the recognition of the First Amendment rights of students by being able to read the books that they want to read, not the books that the school committee has deemed moral. Second, I wanted to speak on the harm that such removals will do to LGBTQ students. One of the books brought up at the last meeting, of which there are copies at all three schools, is the book Drama by Raina Telgemeier. The book is a graphic novel about middle school students putting on a school play, and it happens to feature an important character who is gay. In all honesty, it's exceptionally similar to the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books. They're both graphic novels, they both deal with middle schoolers, and they're both aimed at the same general age group. The reason why Drama is a target and Diary of a Wimpy Kid is not is because Drama features a gay character and Diary of a Wimpy Kid does not. What books like, Drama is not promoting homosexuality, and it's not going to turn your children gay. What books like Drama do is they help kids to understand that these feelings that they're feeling, which they may not understand or they may want to hide, are nothing to be ashamed of. Books which depict LGBTQ characters like Drama, they help young LGBTQ students to see that they should not hide who they are, and they also help to promote greater acceptance from others. And finally, I strongly disagree with this implied notion that came up a bunch at the last school committee meeting that sex should not be read by students, even by high schoolers. By high school, the literature which students read and which is taught in schools is meant to capture the human condition. It's meant to attempt to transport the human experience to the page. And whether you like it or not, sex is naturally going to be a part of that. To remove literature with any element of sex from the high school curriculum would be to remove To Kill a Mockingbird, Romeo and Juliet, The Canterbury Tales, Morality Play, Their Eyes Were Watching God, 1984, The Great Gatsby, The Scarlet Letter, Brave New World, and so many more books that are essential to our curriculum. These books contain sex in some way, shape, or form, yes, but they are works of art which should be taught to students. And the sexual nature of some of the topics in the books does not remove their status as important works of literature, and it does not mean they should not be read in the classroom. And finally, as students enter college, they will be expected to be able to have mature conversations about a variety of topics in literature, be it sex, be it politics, be it anything else. And to remove works from the curriculum that deal with topics like sex or politics is to remove their ability to have those important conversations when they get to college. I understand that as of the last meeting, it was said that the superintendent is going to look into some of the books in the library, and as will the school committee. And I do strongly hope that you consider the impact that removing such books would have, not only on the parents of the community, but on the students as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Savigny?
Good evening, Joey Savigny. Just want to clarify a little something. At the last meeting, this was not an attack on homosexuality. This was an attack on there being sexually explicit books in our libraries from elementary school to the high school, as well as there being pictures of children performing oral acts on adult males. This isn't just literature. This is pictures. This is sexually explicit stuff. The look on your faces when we were reading some of these things at the last meeting pretty much said it all, that you couldn't believe that this stuff was even in our libraries. The other thing is we have children that are already dealing with mental health issues. The last thing we need in our libraries is books telling these children on how to do it and do it right. That's wrong. If these kids have problems, they should be going to their guidance counselors, and their guidance counselors should be the ones helping them. We shouldn't be giving them books on how to do it in the library. I think taking these books out of the library is a step in the right direction. If your kids want to read these books, go to the public library and get them. It shouldn't be in the school library. It shouldn't be my tax dollars funding them. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Welch?
Hello, my name is Christine Welch. I'm one of the special education teachers at the high school. I just wanted to make a quick plug for the Unified Champion Schools Plunge, which is happening this Saturday. Mother Nature has been a little interesting for us. We have plunged in the snow, we've plunged in below zero weather, but I just wanted to let everybody know it's happening Saturday. We're plunging at 11. It looks like it's going to rain on us, but we're doing it anyway. So if anyone has any questions or would they'd like to contribute or join us, you can reach out to myself or to Jim Fitzgerald. We share the co-liaison responsibilities with Special Olympics Rhode Island. So we'd love to see any and all faces there. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for the record, we do have as new business, North Smithfield Library Policy and Procedures on the agenda. I just want, and we can move that up if people want to move it up. But before we get there, let's just move on to the fiscal year 21 financial statement presentation.
Okay, Pat, I'm going to unmute you. And would you like your video on?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you and we can see you.
Okay, very good. Good evening. I'm Pat Boucher from Bacon and Company. I'm here to just give you a brief overview of the financial statements. So I'm just going to go through a couple of the pages and you can stop me at any time to ask any questions, or we can wait till the end and you can ask the questions then. I'm not sure if you have your financial statements in front of you, but starting on page 1 is our independent auditor's report. It's an unmodified opinion, which means that the financial statements as presented are presented in conformance with generally accepted accounting principles. So that's pages 1 through 3 of the document. And starting on page 4 is your balance sheet. There's 2 columns, the school unrestricted fund, which is the school's operating fund, and then the school restricted funds, which are all your combined other funds, food service, grants, and et cetera. So the school unrestricted fund, you can see as of June 30th, 2021, ended the fiscal year with a total fund balance of approximately $2.3 million. And of that, there are various restrictions or assignments. The biggest amount is your restriction for education programs at the $2 million. So that's the residual amount from your general operating budget that's reserved for education programs. And then you can see the school restricted grants or restricted fund column has some fund balances. There was a change this year with a new standard that was implemented. It's called GASB 84. It changed the presentation of student activity funds. So they now are presented in with the school restricted grants. So you'll see that's new this year. There's a balance of student activities that's restricted of 141,000. So that's a change from prior year. And then there's some other scholarships. Again, those were part of the student activity funds that have now been moved over under the special revenue funds or the school restricted funds. And then the balance is food service and other grants. So that's page 4. Page 5 is your statement of revenues and expenses. You can see the first column, the school unrestricted fund. The net change in your overall fund balance for the fiscal year, it's the third line from the bottom. It was $1,082,600. That was your surplus or your net change in fund balance for the year for the school unrestricted fund. And then there was an increase in the school restricted funds of $112,000. And I will draw your attention, there is a budget to actual presentation in the report. It is on page 12 of the document. So this shows your original budget, your final budget, and then the actual. So if you're on that page, you can see from overall your total revenues, you exceeded the budget by about $19,000, and your expenditures came in favorable over $1 million. So your net budgetary surplus for the year was the $1,072,599. Okay, so starting on page 14 are all those other restricted funds that I talked about. I wasn't planning on going through those in detail, but if you had questions on those, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. So that's pretty much it for the document on the financial statements. Just a couple other notes. You are required to have a federal single audit because you do receive federal funds, and that's done in conjunction with the town audit. So this year, the CARES Act money was subject to single audit. So both on the town and the school side, those were tested, and we had no findings related to those programs. And the town had no other, or the school had no other additional findings as it relates to internal controls or compliance. And we did not issue a management letter as it relates to the school department. So that is my quick overview. I don't know if anyone has any questions on the report or other questions.
Anyone have any questions? No, thank you. Lisa, another great job. Any further comments or questions? Okay, moving on.
Good, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Moving on, did we want to jump into the North Smithfield library policies and procedures? Sure. Okay. Hearing no objections, Superintendent?
No, hang on, just taking a look. Here we go. We switched over. So, you know, I listened to the last meeting with great interest and spoke with Ms. Arnold, and we had several meetings with the school library media specialists. So we've had procedures in place all these years, but we haven't had a policy. And we figured with this rising up, the questions and the comments and the concerns that were brought forward, not just in North Smithfield, but this is happening all across the country, that what we would do is to take a look at the way we purchase books, the types of books that we keep in the library, and then also giving a recourse. If somebody has a question, comment, or concern, there are multiple levels that someone can follow. So this policy that you have in front of you was created by ourselves and the school librarians, along with things from the American Library Association, the American Association of School Libraries, and a big portion of it is from the Department of Education Basic Educational Plan, which lays out the foundations of what needs to be in a school library. And so on the first page of this, it does lay out what's the expectation of being in any school library media center. And I'm not going to read through it, but I'll just highlight a couple of the key words in here. Multiple opportunities to access and interact with library media and instructions. Open to all. Addresses Rhode Island literacy standards. Effective for the interpretation and development of new understanding, for decoding and comprehension of reading. Enhances the reading curriculum, provides students with opportunities to read widely and become extensive lifelong learners. Actually, many of the things that were in the vision of the graduate are encapsulated in what a school library media center is supposed to provide. Information literacy, how to use information, how to critically think for information. Independent learning shall assist all students in becoming active and creative locators, evaluators, and users of information to solve problems and satisfy their own curiosity. Using information in authentic learning, social responsibility. An effective library media program teaches students to seek information from diverse sources, contexts, disciplines, cultures, to respect the principles of equitable access to information, intellectual freedom, intellectual property rights, and so on. So that is the core foundation for the from the Department of Education for a library media center. Now, within that are our practices and procedures to support it. So library media material shall be pertinent to the curriculum, appropriate for recommended levels and formats, accessible to students and varied abilities, meet informational and interest needs of all students, accurate in terms of content, representing different viewpoints on a wide variety of subjects, acceptable in literary style, technical quality, cost effective, examined as a whole, not, and yes, I'll admit, some of the quotes that were brought out last month did raise a few eyebrows. All right, but the thing is to also step back and look at the work as a whole, not for a sentence or two, because in taking it out of context, there's a concern that the larger message will be lost. All right, so we have to take a look at the entire work and curate it to foster an appreciation for informational and recreational reading, viewing, and listening. Now, a question came up about, okay, who purchases the books? So the books that are in the library are recommended by teachers, they're recommended by students. I know our library media specialist really wants students to recommend the books that resonate with them. Because again, you want authentic voices, you want kids to learn, to love to read, to explore. Along with that, our library media specialists consult with the professional organizations, and there's a network of state and local librarians, schools, and they're in constant communication as to what books are the best to bring into the library, which ones resonate with the students. Now, question came up in that, there are maybe some titles that not all parents are accepting of, not all themes or subjects, that they may question the maturity level of certain titles. So we have recourse for that. And we actually had the recourse for that all along. It was part of our procedure. But things caught up with the school committee, and but we do have things in place that were actually moved into this policy just to get it out there and in public. So the first thing that we ask if a parent has an issue with a certain title is a conversation with the school library media specialist. So, for example, I mean, there are certain faiths that the parents don't want their children to read about birthdays or holidays. And so they can have that conversation with the NSCS librarian, and she will make sure that the kids don't get the books on the birthdays and holidays. That she will monitor the reading. There was a question of certain titles being available at NSCS, drama for one. Now, NSCS, the library is broken up by grade level. So just because a book which is targeted or designed for a fourth grader, it's not accessible by a PK or a first grader or below. So we've had many parents just reach out to the school librarian and say, hey, I'm not comfortable with my child reading this. And the school librarian will just monitor the books that that child wants to check out and read. Now, there's another level that we had talked about in that, if it's not just a simple theme or a subject, if it's a specific title or again, a larger concept, they can talk to the librarian and put a flag on the patron database. So even if a parent wants to have full control over what that child reads or checks out from the library, he or she can do that. The card catalog is online. They can request a book for their student, and that title will be waiting for them at the counter next time they go to the library. So again, we want to work. We want to keep titles available to the widest variety of people. And if there are some that have questions or concerns about certain books or certain themes, we can work with them. All right. So in that's outlined in this as well. Now, there are some titles that certain people may want to bring up and say, look, it's not even appropriate for anybody. I don't care if you're giving me a choice or you're going to, let me work with my child. I don't want anybody to see this. And we do have a information form, a reconsideration of materials form. If working with the librarian isn't enough, if monitoring the titles that the child takes out of the library isn't enough, people can submit a reconsideration of materials form. Now, we have that down. It asks a number of questions, and it basically follows the same framework that we practice throughout the district, that if there's anyone who has an issue with any aspect of a child's education, the first person they talk to is that child's teacher. If they can't get satisfaction or an agreement after talking with the teacher, then escalates to the principal. And the parent works with the teacher and the principal. If it doesn't, if they're not happy with how that is resolved, then it goes to the superintendent. And, I'll hear it, and, and I'll weigh in. If they're not satisfied with my answer, then they go to the school committee, right? And the school committee can hear the concern and, come up with a decision. If they don't like the school committee, they can go to the Department of Education, right? That follows every aspect of what we do, including with the library. So if there is a filing for reconsideration of materials, that will be reviewed by, and not just the librarian of the school who may have been the one who selected it, but because we're a very tight-knit district, we work very closely with each other. Vision of the graduate goes from pre-K to 12. When we look at the titles in our libraries, it's the elementary, middle school, and high school librarian that will take a look at it, along with a content area teacher. If the book in question is historical in nature, we would have somebody from the history department. If the book in question is has social, emotional, or psychological connotations, then it would be our school social worker and or psychologist, along with the building principal, and they will look at it. And let me tell you, there have been books that our librarians, whether they inherited it from a previous librarian, they've looked at it and said, "Ooh, no, I don't think so," and they pulled the title. I know there was a concern at the beginning of the year was brought up by a title called Genderqueer at the high school library, and it was never shelved. The librarian, it came in as in order from a larger package. She looked at it, reviewed it, and thought, no, you know what? This is too much. I'm not going to put it out there, even though it's in many other high school libraries. Now, it was entered into the card catalog system, and so that's what people saw, but it was never in circulation. And I know in talking with our middle school librarian, he inherited a couple of titles there that he has pulled because, again, in his professional estimation, looking at the age level of the students in his school, there were certain aspects that he wasn't comfortable with. But then the question goes, well, how far do we take this? Now, again, I'll give the example from the middle school librarian. He brought a book and he said, well, this book I have has the N-word in it. Do I keep it on the shelf? And I said, well, okay, is this Huckleberry Finn? Is it To Kill a Mockingbird? And he said, no, it's the history of North Smithfield. It was written in 1970, and there are place names with the N-word. Do we pull this from the shelf? So, but you know what? We do have the mechanism in there that people can say, hey, look, I'm not comfortable with this. Do a reconsideration materials. A team will look at it, issue a finding. If the parent doesn't, if the parent or the citizen doesn't like that, then it would go to me and I would take a look at it. If they don't like my finding, it will go to the school committee. All right, and you can set up a subcommittee and take a look at it. So again, we want to have a wide variety of information for the students. We want to keep everybody safe, but we also do recognize people will have concerns, and their parents will have rights on what their child can read or should be able to pick out of the library. So this policy tries to encapsulate all of that.
Thank you.
Well, I think I would just like to make, a comment. I'd like to thank Ethan Dano because he very succinctly and expertly put this whole topic into perspective. These books are resources. There's so much more than the bits and pieces that were read to us. I think they're jumping off points for healthy conversations about real life scenarios that will hopefully offer a better understanding of the issues that our children face. And our children are bombarded with so much these days, not just from books. Kids are smarter, more thoughtful, and more resilient than they're given credit for. And they're growing up faster and they know what's going on. And if we don't talk about it or answer questions that they might have, we're just hiding from it. And we're not doing our kids any favors at all. And I would like to say that in this policy, parents have the option of making a list of the subjects that they don't want their children exposed to. And that solution should really satisfy all concerns. But I might suggest that parents themselves read the books before they ban them from their children, and perhaps that would be the start of the healthy conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Superintendent? Yeah, comment, but if you want to comment first.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. I just want to point out that I looked at the policy a few times, and I think it's a good policy because I think it tries to balance various concerns other people may have and tries to take everyone's interest into account. And what I also like about it is I read a lot of legalese in my life, and I didn't think this was really hard to understand. I thought it was very clear and straightforward. So I think the idea that taking this, which again has been a procedure we've had, but now putting it as part of our policy is a good idea because again, it codifies a lot of things we're already doing, but I think it's good to have it in place because it's, for example, if someone wants to go through the process, as you described, Superintendent, it's very clear. I think that the steps are very clear and it's very, it's articulated well. I don't think it's hard to follow. Again, I think it's very clear. And again, I commend it as an institution of best practices and something that will, try to address what is an issue coming around now, and I think in a very fair way.
Mr. Jones?
I just want to echo what Mrs. Mayo said and thank Mr. Dano for a really well thought out discussion about kind of the other side from what we had seen at the last meeting. And what a great meeting this has been, folks, to see our students get up there and really say all throughout this meeting, we are equipped, we are intelligent, we know what we're talking about, and just bravo for every one of our students who've spoken today. And for what Mr. Connell said too, this is a very clear policy. I think it's totally comprehensive for parents who wish to sit down with their children and discuss with them exactly what type of information they'll be taking in. I think this is a great option. I don't know, Superintendent, if you mentioned it, and I missed it, but I just want to reiterate for the crowd that challenged materials will remain in circulation while this process is in motion. So that's important too. I think that's very important for us to know that, these challenge materials will not get pulled from the shelves while they're being talked about. This is not a backdoor mechanism for censorship or anything of that kind. This is just a good way for the district to have conversations. I think it's great.
Thank you. So, Superintendent, I also echo the support for this policy. I think that setting up a committee and a hierarchy of appeals is good. I also like that parents who choose to have their children not see the materials or not be allowed to take it out can get involved and stop that. I know that I heard a lot of things while, kids can get on the internet, kids can do a lot of things, and I agree with that 100%. And see whatever might be offensive, but that's then the parent's choice, not our choice, or whatever it may be. When it gets into our realm, I think parents, again, need to have a choice here, and I think that this allows that to happen. So thank you very much for writing that. Appreciate it. Any other comments? Hearing. Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. So thank you, everyone who spoke on that. Let's move on to the next item. Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything on here that they'd like to take off? I'd like 14 taken off. And just I have a question if anyone else has anything. Just on item number 6, Lisa, I just want to ask if this is, these are the continuation of the contracts. I'm sure that you've looked at them all and that you agree that that's in the best interest of the school department to continue these contracts.
Yes.
Thank you. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 16 and taking out 14. Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. You have that? Mr. Jones. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. I'm going to recuse on 14, so Jean, if you want.
I would like a motion to accept number 14, approval of We the People check request to release the funds for the Washington DC trip.
Second. Second.
I'm sorry, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Yes.
And for the record, I'll recuse.
Chairman Bodden.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the superintendent's report.
I'm just going to show you 2 things. Very quick. Like the stuff on my screen. Here we go. So at the last meeting, there were questions about ESSER funds and availability of it online. If you were to go to our homepage and look over here, scroll down a little bit, there's the ESSER II application, the ESSER III application, and the budget information. And we will be updating the budget information on the ESSER funds as we go along. One of the things to say is that Ms. Arnold, she worked very hard and she had a happy dance moment when ESSER III was accepted by the Department of Ed. So, and the other thing that I am going to just quickly show is, now this is related to the policies. On our website, we have an enormous scrolling list of policies. I don't know how many there are, but they're all in individual PDF format. So to make things easier for all of us and for anybody in the community that wants to look at our policies, I combined them all into a single document, indexing them all. So the entire 360 whatever 27 pages that existed in individual PDFs are now in one place. Click on a button, you just jump down to the policy, do a search on a keyword, and it will come up wherever that keyword shows up in the policy. All right, so you may think that's good, but in doing this, I came across so many things that need to be changed. So you are going to be inundated from starting next month with policy after policy after policy to start making corrections. All right, sometimes it's an address, sometimes it's somebody's name, running from simple to, all right, these are things, other more serious things that we need to address. Okay, that's it for mine.
Thank you, Superintendent.
I just want to add too, obviously, times change, needs change, so policy updates, we have that many, it's almost a continuing process. I don't think it
It
ends.
is.
It's not like, well, we're there, we're good. Even if you are good, then you gotta look at 2 months. So it's an ongoing process.
Wait till we get to our technology policy that was done about 5 years ago. Well, you know what? It's different now. So, yes.
Moving on to item number 5, which is for informational purposes only. Does anyone have any questions on item number, 4?
I actually have some information to give you.
Sure.
All right, so if you notice down IJKLM, contingent to reconfiguration. So we did make an adjustment on the way the coaches were handled for track. And here's why. We have a lot of students going out for track now. All right, so what we used to have was a head coach, a super head coach, who was overseeing 3 assistant coaches. All right, we wanted to, because we have so many coming out now, we wanted to break that up into 2 proper head coaches and 2 proper assistant coaches. Now, there is a $300 difference in the salaries when you add them all up. So for an extra, but I'm recommending making this change because that program is just growing by leaps and bounds and we need a different way to work with the students. So that's it. It's an extra $300 from what we budgeted.
Thank you, Superintendent. That's great. And this is for informational purposes only, so we don't vote on it, so you can move forward on
Okay.
whatever. We don't need a vote. Okay, jumping into the fiscal year. Does anybody have any questions? Moving on to old business 5, fiscal year 22 budget. Lisa, anything? 23. Okay. And then moving on to item number 6, new business survey works approval as per NSPS policy VA 20 student questionnaires.
Right, so I provided for you well, let me just say, Survey Works has different components. The parent family component, the staff component, but there's a student component. And based on earlier in the year, and then the question of opt out and opt in for these surveys. That's why it's before you tonight. And I provided the questions. This is not anywhere near as controversial or personal as the adolescent youth risk survey. There are just a lot of questions on the students' perception of teachers and their school and how safe they feel. And there are questions on bullying. And that's all laid out. It's all publicly available. But we've held off administering the student component to bring it to the school committee. So if you say it's okay to administer the survey, we will do it in a couple of weeks because it's actually due by the end of March. We have to get this in. But then it comes out to the other question of, is this an opt-in or an opt-out? Now, the default for Survey Works is a opt-out. All right. I'm happy to do this as an opt-in. So I can take your direction, or I can just say, hey, look, you know what? Just because there was such concern earlier in this year, let's go for this one. Let's do it as an opt-in. My only concern is that we won't get as much student participation to go through the opt-in route. And because it is good data. We use it for programming. We use it for a lot of things. So I can ask you, can we give the survey? And would you like us to do it as an opt-in? Yeah, of course.
So, Mr. Superintendent, what would be the parameters through which we're gonna promote this survey, be it opt-in or opt-out? I mean, is this going to be a letter home to parents?
Yeah,
media?
we'll send it directly. We'll send it directly home to parents, along with copies of the questions. And whether it's an opt-in or an opt-out, there will be a little form attached to it. Last name, first name, grade level. And you can take it, you cannot take it. I'm happy to go with the opt-in. So you have to say, I would like my child to take the survey. Again, I'm just going to put out the little disclaimer. I'm concerned that we won't get as much participation as the other way around. And again, the default for this one, because it really doesn't have a lot of controversy in the sense that it's a survey that's been done year after year after year across all districts, is opt-out.
So Superintendent, you said you're going to send a letter home. I assume you're also going to email, I mean, whatever else that we have capacity to do.
Yep.
Call. I mean, I don't know. I'm asking.
We posted on social media, letters home,
Okay.
letters go out in the, emails. It's in weekly notices that go home from the principals. I mean, so we can get the word out really fast. And again, up on the Department of Ed site, all the questions are there for everyone's review. We can link that, or we can just attach the PDFs directly to an email home. You know, make it easy.
I mean, I'm inclined to say opt-out, but I just want to make sure that there's been a really comprehensive attempt to contact parents, give them an idea of what this is all about. Could we try like press release, the Valley Breeze and
Sure.
RI Now News, something like that, just really put it out there?
Yeah, and again, because it's due at the end of March, we don't have a lot of time. So what we're looking at is a large email blast, phone calls, you know, we have everybody's contact information. So we can get that information out very quickly, concisely.
I agree with Paul. I'm inclined to think of the opt-out because I think we're doing everything we can to let parents know and also giving them the opportunity to see and read the survey. So I'm inclined to say opt-out as well.
Okay.
Chair, members of the committee, I'm also in favor of the opt-out. Look at the question. I just want to clarify, Superintendent, those questions you sent us, those are not, I think it's a sample, but those are the actual questions.
Those are the actual questions.
Those are the actual questions. I went through the questions. I say opt-out because I think the information that's being asked is useful for the school. And I'll echo what everyone else has indicated about what's previously echoed, is make sure that, you know, especially with we have post office boxes for a lot of us here in Slatersville and Forestdale. So if it goes on mail, they may not get it. So yeah, as long as we do the email supplement, I'm very much in favor of the opt-out.
And I think we have to have parents understand the reason that we're doing this is to help us improve and how we can do things to make things better.
Yeah, and likewise, the parent survey is tremendously valuable to us. I mean, we go through, this is what I like about SurveyWorks more so than many other surveys, is that we get the data. No, we don't see anybody's name. We don't know who answered what, but you know, we get to see the trends and the concerns, and you know, and there's also areas of just free-form comment, you know, which all of this is really useful for us. We review it and we use it to drive a lot of decisions and certainly programs and you know, and finances.
So Superintendent, I guess, can you tell me how this is given, in the sense that, is it given in classrooms?
It takes 30 minutes. It's done on there. It's done online.
In a classroom.
in a classroom.
And as you said, it can't be identified.
Nope.
I just, my only concern here is I agree that this information is useful, extremely useful, especially on mental health questions. I'm concerned that I think at the last meeting that we had, there was an indication that we would only do opt-ins. Although it was an option, I guess, because we said either one, but the testimony was opt-in. So that's my only holdback here.
Yep.
But I think that,
The policy each reads either way, but again, as indicated, because of the concern and because of this year, we're happy to do this as an opt-in.
that's just, I'm just making my statement. I think the opt-out votes are here. So, anybody else have any questions?
I'm sorry, the policy that we approved in December does say that there is the choice to opt in or out as applicable. So that is stated in our policy.
I did go back and watch the minutes of that meeting, so that's why I was concerned.
No, the chair's right, actually. The chair's right. We did have more of a conversation on opt-in. The backlash we had with that last survey, I think, had a lot to do with questions as well, the content, the manner in which it was delivered. I think a lot of these obstacles have been addressed ably by the district. So, I appreciate that you're willing to do the opt-in. I think because these questions are much more innocuous, because this is a fully anonymous survey, because we're doing so much more to put the word out for parents, I am comfortable with the idea of opt-in.
And I tend to agree with you. I just don't want, I'm concerned, of the message that we put out last meeting. That's all. That's the only thing I'm concerned about.
Yeah, just to put maybe that into perspective, and I mean, I don't recall exactly what was spoken last time. I certainly remember the discussion, but I think part of the idea of having the policy the way it is that we can have an opt-in and an opt-out depending on the survey. And again, survey works is again, something that we've had a history with, whereas the survey before, which was causing more of an issue among the community, some members of the community, was something new from what I was saying. It was a relatively new survey.
Every 2 years.
Yeah, so they know some of the questions though. This time we see, like in this case, with survey work, we just saw the questions. So we had a chance to, and I know sometimes we don't all the time, but I did go through the questions and can reiterate that I think the information that we get is not only useful, but we are going to get more people opt in. And I noticed in the question, there was an option for students to not answer. Because I looked at the student one, I looked at them all, but the student one in particular, there was a not answer option at the end. So
Absolutely.
students can choose not to answer. It's not like they have to answer a particular question. At least that was my understanding of it from the paper version. Am I correct? Yeah, they can not answer. So I'm comfortable with, for this particular one, being an opt-out, and also that we're going to do the electronic. And frankly, we'll see how it goes. But I think we're very cognizant of the fact it's well publicized, and I would just ask if we do go with the opt-out, that we just make sure teachers are our teachers, the people administering, are aware of. Just be aware that it's an issue in trying to promote the kids to, hey, if you do want to opt out, if you want to yes, opt out, just have them mention it a few times so that it's very clear the students know that. And again, we'll send a notice out for parents, I think, and the guardians and responsible adults. I think between those two things will be, I'm willing to go that way. But again, for another test, for another survey, I might agree with you and go with the opt-in, making an opt-in for a different survey. But it depends on the survey.
I'm sorry, this is a silly question, but there's no financial incentive for the students to fill this out. I know that was an issue that came up last night.
And there's nothing else that we can do that affirmatively, which would be an opt-in, but affirmatively agrees for the child to take it. And I don't know what that is, but, or at least, let me just say this, or be able to say that the parent received the opt-out. So for example, I know when you send emails, sometimes you,
Right.
you at least know somebody opened it.
We have, a good point.
Yeah.
Because we have about 50 families that have blocked emails coming out from our system.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm Peg Botter. For those of you who don't know, I am the project manager of Survey Works at Rhode Island Department of Education. I will not be voting on this, even though I think it's very valuable for the town. At the beginning of the student survey, and there is a site coordinator announcement that every student hears before they take the survey. And it says, if you are uncomfortable answering a question, a series of questions, or any of the questions, you do not have to do that. So it's very well understood for every student from the beginning. They don't have to answer this survey. So at least if these parents didn't get it, if they at least got the information that it was out there, they would have the ability to tell their child, this survey is coming, but you don't have to take it. So I'm just letting you know, we try as many ways as we can to let students know you only answer questions if you're comfortable answering it, and the only purpose of the survey is to help schools improve. That's all it is. It's completely anonymous across the board. We give the data back to the schools and to the district so that they can use it to improve what they do.
Okay. So, I do have it in front of me. I do see the questions. The questions are not offensive to me personally, but I don't know if they are to anyone else. I'm just concerned. I continue to be concerned about the last meeting. I want the parent to have the option. Well, let's move on, I guess. We have a motion.
Finish your thought. I mean,
No, I mean, I said it. I mean, so I don't know where else to go from here. I know that, and again, I think that this is very important information. I think that, most children should do it, if that's what their parents want. But again, I'm just concerned, that somebody doesn't get it, or whatever the perception was at the last meeting, had somebody not show up today, maybe, to talk about this. That's my concerns, but move forward.
So we're talking about the end of March. Just to ask, can we, is it possible to push it back a couple of weeks? Are we committed to that time pretty much at the end of
Yeah,
March?
that's pretty much when the survey closes across the entire state.
Okay, so we're locked in.
Yeah.
Frankly, I think that we are covering all of our bases and following our policy by moving forward with this. And this is so totally different from the policy that everyone was concerned about last year.
Okay, want to make the motion? Anybody want to make the motion?
I'll make the motion that we approve the administration of the survey works in the time frame suggested by the superintendent, and we make it opt-out policy. Those to all parent, guardians, and responsible adults about the opt-out option.
Motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And I'll recuse.
All opposed? I'm going to oppose it. Okay, so the ayes have it. Okay, reduced. Fine, I think that's it. So, any further business? Yeah. Well, yeah, we got to return. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. We're adjourned. We could start, if we could start